So by show of hands, does everybody have a comfort level with the term RPA? Does everybody know what the term RPA means? So-and-so,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Well, so we'll try to put the basis. We just had a great presentation by Jim talking about artificial intelligence. As I think about it from an operations perspective, because that's certainly what my background is. I'm not an IT guy. The strength of the current RPA market is that many of these tools can be used by operations professionals. You don't have to be a coder. You don't have to be an IT in order to be able to utilize the tools effectively. When I think about, in an operations perspective, AI acts as the brain, RPA acts as the hands. AI can detect the patterns. It can provide you probability on what the right answer is at some level, but then it needs something to execute the decision making. And so RPA would end up being that execution tool. It's software-based, and it is solely focused around highly rules-based with very structured inputs, and works at the same user interface layer as a human associate would. So if you have someone who has access credentials to different systems and transfers data between those two systems, you can provide an RPA software with the exact same type of credentials. It'll work at the same layer, and it will automate that process where they're highly rules-based and where the data is very structured.
So I would, just to complement, I think there is an artificial intelligence hype today. I think it's even difficult to explain what artificial intelligence is. The only thing that we may agree is that there is a hype, no? What's RPA? RPA is the logic intelligence that should come before. No? So all the companies, all of them, they have repetitive, boring internal processes. That's what RPA attacks. No? Simple, easy to implement, real results very soon. That's it. At Symphony, we say that's the first step to attack artificial intelligence. Do not launch yourself to the water to say, I'm going to do a new artificial brain to see my operations. Artificial intelligence may come first, and that's going to be the foundations of the castle of artificial intelligence.
So why are companies doing RPA in the first place? And there are lots of reasons why. Certainly, those of you who are in operations know that every year we're driven to be better, stronger, faster. My vague reference to a 1970s television show there. But every year we're asked to do more with less and to find new and unique ways to do what we've always done with less people. Traditional methods, specifically in IT, have been costly to build, run, and maintain. So if you think about enterprise resource planning systems, PeopleSoft as an example, if you think about custom coded applications, you might refer to those as heavy IT. Takes a lot of money, a lot of investment, and a lot of time in order to get them implemented, stood up, and operating fully. There's a middle layer there. I hesitate to call it middleware, but there's a middle layer there of very specialized custom applications that sit on top of heavy IT to do very specific things. There's an organization or a software called Blackline that's been devised specifically to take on certain roles within finance and accounting that sits on top of an ERP system. You might generally look at RPA as kind of a light IT application. It doesn't require the same infrastructure that some of these other systems require. It does require care and maintenance, but not at the same level that some of your heavier IT solutions require, and tends to be much more agile to deploy and to implement than those other solutions. You know, we've all built our own Excel macros. We've all had people in our organizations who build access databases, and those are great, but they're not scalable, and they don't work. And they work outside the traditional IT structure. RPA does in many ways as well, but you can't do much with something that somebody's built on their particular desktop. RPA is stable, it's secure, it's been proven many times over to not impact the heavy IT solutions. It's additive to what we can do with heavy IT solutions, again, in a much more agile and lighter way. And it really sets the foundations, as was mentioned, for what you're going to do with cognitive machine learning and AI later on. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's important. But it also helps to shortcut and create some alignments in functional areas that may not have happened otherwise.
Yeah, that last one is important. RPA, what's the difference, the fundamental difference, no? From traditional IT development and automation? RPA does not touch the systems. It's like a robot that mimics what the people do today with the current systems. So you avoid any change on the current systems, on your core systems, and that's it. This fundamental change makes that every implementation is very easy to be done. So the implementation timing, it's measured in days and weeks. If you can explain me what your users are doing today, I can automate it, no? So the fundamental switch is, let's think, if you have a capability, a virtual workforce that is highly disciplined, heavy duty, he can do a lot of things, how would you do things better in your company? That's the key point. Then the automation itself is very simple, no? And for example, there is one typical and repetitive case with our companies and our clients. The companies typically, internally, they are functional based. From time to time, they are silo based. There are silos within the company. And from time to time, their customers, they have their own transversal customer journeys. No? Who's following this customer? The customer has to go from department to department through their journey, no? And for example, this morning I was discussing an example. One telecom customer who wants to move their service from their first house to their second house. For the customer, he just wants to change the address. For the company, the guy from retention does not want him to leave the first house. And the guy from the second house, the sales guy, is offering him promotions. And the customer, the only thing he wants is, I just want to switch the address. No prices, no nothing. So for example, a robot can follow him transversally to the functional-based company, no? And this is very typical. And this, I would say, is the fundamental change that you start defining what's the perfect process you want to be. Then we put robots as a service to you, interacting with your current systems in a matter of weeks. That's the key difference of the technology.
So despite the fact that some of these technologies are as old as 15, almost 20 years old now in their origins, it's really been within the last 6 or 7 years that the current wave of interest in application and usage of the technology has started to take hold, leading to the market expectations. And what normally happens, at least in many cases, is, and it's certainly what happened when I started my RPA program, was that a leader goes to a conference somewhere, they hear about this fun stuff, and they hear about all these wonderful use cases, and they come back and say, I don't know what it is, but we need to do it, go figure it out. And that's really part of what has created some of the challenges in RPA implementation over the last several years. There has been a tremendous amount of market hype. And there are technologies over the last several years that have been around forever that have been retagged with the term RPA, whether they really fit that term or not. That's not unusual. That happens anytime where there's a huge new wave of interest in a particular activity or a service. But there's been a huge amount of hype. So I have my own unicorns. I call them purple unicorns. They're not the same as gems, but purple unicorns are those use cases that your boss went to a conference on and heard about 3,000 and 4,000% RPI, or return on investment, or reductions of 300 or 400 FTEs, and they come back and they think that's the norm. And so they come back, and that's the expectation that's set when you're setting up an RPA program. Mm-hmm. Those use cases are real, but they're not the norm. And so I've taken to calling those purple unicorns. As with many initiatives which are designed to build efficiency into a process system, there can be some resistance from operations management. I think those of us who've been involved in the continuous improvement realm over the years, Six Sigma, Lean, and so on, know that when you're going into an operations area, sometimes people get defensive. You want to change what I do. You're criticizing the way I do my work, whether that's really what you're doing or not. But certainly they feel some threat to the way that they do their work, and they have people who fear being automated out of jobs. That's certainly not been the case that we've seen thus far. We see more people being deployed into other parts of the organization if pieces of their job have been automated, but that certainly persists. And as you see studies as far back as an Oxford University study from 2014 that predicted somewhere in the vicinity of 450 million US jobs being eliminated because of this new wave or this new implementation of this technology, it's understandable why people might get concerned.
Let me connect two points of what you're saying, AJ. The first one, for Latin America, people say, but here the labor costs are very low. There is no room there is no business case for substituting people by a robot, by a technology. That's fundamentally, that's not the reality we're identifying. In the past, because of low-cost labor, people thrown people at the problem. So I have an internal operation. What do? I put people to do that. In the midterm, that was not the best solution. The business cases that we are seeing, of course, is cost reduction, because even the robot is the next step of cost reduction, but also erasing operational risk, quick answer times, things that humans cannot do. So it's the next step, and these kind of benefits applies to Latin America, fundamentally, yes. And then the second point that A.J. is saying, people tend to ask me, how do you implement? Because to implement RPA, you have to understand my specific process internally, and you have to go and talk to the guy who is doing that, but the guy will say, if I explain you what I'm doing, you're going to substitute me. How do you break this barrier? Our real case is that never happens. People say, I'm super busy. Please bring your robot and take me out all this repetitive work so I can focus in more value-added work. For example, we have ended up now a project, an interesting project. We have robotized the end-to-end financial process of a bank. For the bank, it took 10 days to close the accounting, the monthly accounting, and they have a bunch of people just trying to figure out what's the sales figure this month, what's the OPEX, the CAPEX. We robotize all of that. Now the bank closes overnight. And the very same people free their time to understand what is happening. Instead of doing repetitive copy and pasting work, now I have time to see, okay, sales decrease, why? And that's it. So when we went and we asked the people, what's the repetitive work you do in your end-to-end financial monthly closings? They were super happy. Please put me a robot to assist me on that. Now, instead of 10 days, I think they close overnight. And now I have time. I have time every time the top management asks me why this KPI changed. I can give him an educated answer, because I've freed my time to higher valued processes. And that's why what A.J. is saying is true. There is room in Latin America, and the process owners are always delighted to have a robot assistant with them together.
And that's why it's critical, especially when you start your program, that first set of processes or that first process that you look at has to be the right one. Again, unfortunately, people come back from conferences, they hear guys like us up on stage telling stories, and then they go back and they think, well, I want to do that. And that may not be right for their specific circumstance. And so there are some studies who say as many as half of the people who've done a major RPA implementation have been dissatisfied with their first pass of it. And much of what we're experiencing right now are people contacting us who have gone through a process with someone and coming in and asking us to do it, to evaluate what they've done, to help them to, I guess, re-steer and redirect, because perhaps they didn't choose the right process up front. Perhaps they didn't choose the right technology up front. And there are some things that you need to do ahead of time before you make those decisions. But so many people see this as a tactical approach as opposed to seeing the strategic value and the need to really have a plan and the strategy around it. That, and in relative terms, relatively inexpensive compared to the other forms of IT to jump into, that they jump in with both feet and then they find themselves up to their necks and not sure what they're going to do from there.
That's right. There is always the same question with the clients: who should be leading the RPA effort, the RPA, the business or the IT department? In our experience, start with the business. Start with the people, because at the end you are putting virtual workers to the people who are managing the business. Those are the guys who understand what they want to achieve with that. And then we go to IT. We will then go and decide the best technology and the best technological path. But this is a consequence, not the origination of the way to solve the process.
And that leads to one of the other challenges, right? The people who do this best are comfortable with technology, but they understand process as well. And there isn't a huge pool of that resource out on the market right now. It's growing, and we continue to see additions to the potential talent pool to be able to utilize the tools. But again, the tools were created with the idea that a business user can learn how to use them, apply their process knowledge in a much more efficient and effective way, perhaps, than what we've been able to do before. We get a lot of questions about how do you maximize your program. And again, you will pick up on a theme in some of our comments that you can't maximize what you're not clear on. We see so many people who jump into this without having given any thought to the strategy about what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, how it's going to impact their organizations. And that has led to some of the struggles that organizations have been expressing. One of the first, I think, barriers is a single-minded focus on just one of the benefits of what RPA can do in an environment. Absolutely. It can provide you with the creation of, or the return of hours back to the business. Many people see that through the idea that they're going to shrink their headcount, shrink the number of FTEs, and that's certainly one of the things that you can do with RPA. But you can also do tremendous things around the quality of the work. Remember, a robot's only going to do what you tell it to do, and if you code it right the first time, then it's going to produce at a higher volume and at a more consistent quality than what a human workforce can do. So there are the quality aspects of it. There are certainly the customer service aspects or customer satisfaction aspects. You can get the work done more quickly. You can get it done more timely. There's less rework involved, which can drive your customer satisfaction. We're actually finding associate satisfaction gains with it as well. Again, we're taking the mundane, kind of brainless activity, without being disrespectful, but the things that people don't have to think very hard about doing. It's not that hard to move data from this system into this system. It can be drudgery. And that's why sometimes you can have a fairly high error rate when you have people doing that kind of work. You can take that off their plates and have them engaged in being more interactive with your customer base, which is a huge advantage that I think people didn't originally anticipate from the technology, but many, many are seeing now as one of the real advantages.
This is right. A lot of the effort or the key success factor for a good RPA implementation is understand what's going on in the organizations. No? Well, my partner in Latin America says, artificial intelligence is what you do not understand. If you can take the rules out of what's happening in the company, then it's a rule-based, simple RPA project. And that's what we do. And that happens a lot, especially in companies who have thrown people at the problem. I have a process, I put a bunch of people there, and they will do their artisan work to solve my internal process. No? When you want to robotize that, the key point is to understand what is happening, no? Which are the rule-based of those people. And again, then the technology, RPA, it's robust, it's proven, and you can implement those in weeks, not in months. And as A.J. is saying, at a hard discount as compared with traditional IT. No, but the important point is to understand what is happening. No? We've been in a project that out of 8 weeks implementation, 5 weeks is understand what is happening. Now, why do you do that? Can you explain me the rules that manage your judgment on this one when you approve or deny this thing? That's the key point.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that, again, one of the things that we see so often is perhaps a lack of governance around how this is being implemented within the organization. So this is not a load the software onto a desktop and walk away and it does its own thing. It's not set it and forget it technology. It does require care and maintenance. It does require some level of governance to make sure that it's being applied appropriately and with a set of rules and standards across your organization. You also have the opportunity of leveraging off of things that you've already done. We do see some circumstances when we've gone in post an implementation to where the client doesn't really realize what they have because they don't have the type of governance that would help them understand. They have reusable activities that they can use from different process to different process. There is a change management component to this. Exactly. Again, you are implementing a piece of technology that some people may fear. And so your change management approach is critical. And not everybody is going to be as excited as you are about the implementation. And so you've got to be really clear about what you're communicating, whom you're communicating it to, and you have to be very, very consistent about what the goals are for your automation program. Mm-hmm. And then many people misperceive the idea, again, that you just set this software off and it runs on its own. It doesn't. It does require oversight and it does require maintenance. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago where someone was at a round table and they were talking about they were getting ready to do a major systems upgrade that they have both human and digital associates working on, and someone made the decision to train the human associates but not the digital associates. Well, if all your associates were human, how many of us in the room would ever make the decision not to train half of the people we have doing the work on the changes that are happening, right? Which is why this personification of the technology into the description as a digital worker is so important, because it helps to orient your mindset around the idea. They have to be retrained just like your human associates have to. They have to be cared for and maintained just like your human associates have to. Yeah. And so you have to walk in with the right mindset around the idea that these are digital workers.
Yeah, actually, most of the solutions are mixed solutions. Mm-hmm. So the robotized process will have robots plus humans collaborating. So you have to do this change management of now, you will have a robot as a colleague from you. He will do the repetitive work, and once he finds an exception, he delivers that to you to work, no? And is it true that more and more often they ask us a change management piece together with implementations, so the clients really capture the real benefits of a robotization. It's not theoretical, but realistic, no? And it goes with this change management piece, yeah, definitely.
And the one thing that we stress over and over again is recognize that RPA is a component of a larger digital transformation strategy. Again, we've lived through the hype of the last several years where there were many perceptions that RPA was going to solve every problem that you have as a business. AI is experiencing the same thing right now. AI is going to solve everything. We're not going to have to worry about anything any longer. And really, they're components of a larger approach to digitizing your operation. And so we strongly encourage a digitization roadmap or a digitization strategy of which RPA is a key component of. It may pair RPA with smart OCR, smart imaging. You'll pair it with other AI technologies or other off-the-shelf technologies. But really, you need to treat it as a strategy and build a roadmap around what it is that you're wanting to do. And then, even more critically, is a data strategy. So the truth about artificial intelligence is it's a voracious eater, and its food is data. Mm-hmm. And for many organizations, while they may have been collecting big data, you heard Jim talk a little while ago about the spike on big data over the years. You don't hear big data as much as you used to. But the reality is that much of that data hasn't been curated in a way that will allow the AI technologies to be able to absorb it and to make good use of it. And so a data strategy as a part of your digitization strategy is a key component. The dream is that you have this massive unstructured data that a piece of technology is just going to magically be able to figure out all the ins and outs of. And while we're much, much closer to that, we're not quite there yet. And so the ability to curate that data in a way that is useful for you and that will allow that AI technology to provide benefit to you earlier. And remember, if we talk about machine learning as a component of artificial intelligence, remember that second part of the term, of the name. It's learning, right? Most of these technologies don't come with native intelligence to what you're using it for. They have to be taught. It has to understand the environment that it's being asked to work in. So this idea that there are these out-of-the-box solutions that will magically that'll be the purple unicorns, that'll magically make all the problems go away, is a part of that hype cycle. And you need to take a more realistic view of how long it will take and what it will take in order for you to be successful at it.
Just to complement, the best implementations we've had is when we start top-down from the CEO agenda. For example, past week we delivered a very nice project in a .com company, in a Mexican .com company, which is with $1 billion revenue. And the CEO said, I have a strategic plan based on exponential growth. So today I'm making 1 billion. I want to do 2 billion in 3 years from now. What can RPA do for me? And we said, we can eliminate bottlenecks for growth. You're a .com company, but you have human back offices, and that's it's not the market, but your internal operations that are your bottleneck for growth. That's been a success for us because we know perfectly where to go. If I reduce the bottleneck for growth for you, the business case is going to be very good because I'm helping you double your business. And we go down to the processes. We raise bottlenecks, and once in a month, we come back and we have this CEO meeting in strategic terms for the company. Now you are prepared to double your sales here. Now you are prepared to double your customer service here, that. The CEO does not care about the specific bottleneck or how the technology has been done. We can translate the new RPA capabilities in terms of their strategic plan. So in those implementations that the CEO has a clear agenda and we can match what RPA can do for you, then we can go scale, and those are the best success stories that we have. In this case, it's a .com company in Mexico.
So we've talked about the importance of a strategy. So this is kind of the way we visualize what that journey is. Now, there are many of these continuums depending on who you look at, but they all basically take a very similar component to what you see here. Now, there are some circumstances where these can be and are often done out of order. So you see we have a pilot right here in the middle of the continuum. Well, many people start with the pilot again. They're starting with the technology as opposed to starting with a plan. They're out doing research on tools without knowing really what they want the tools to do other than what they've heard when they've come back from a conference. And so as we view a continuum on how you approach a program, it really starts with setting that vision. We look at this stage, and it's called the variety stages, but this stage is really where you get that alignment, where you get the key stakeholders involved, and you get the support that's necessary for you to be able to implement within your business or within your particular operation. This sets that strategy that you then execute against. You would then move to something, we call this a FOA, a future of work accelerator, but what it actually is a deeper dive into those things that you've identified as a part of the vision. So in the vision, worked your way through, I want to be in these areas, and maybe I want to focus on these particular sub-activities within those areas. You then start diving into the detail. And this gets down, done well, this gets down to the keystroke level, where you're actually sitting with people, watching what they do, because we all know that process documentation is easy to not keep updated. And so your process documentation isn't necessarily the best source for you to work off of to try to automate. And so you're really getting down deeply into the activity to understand where the automation opportunity is.
This outcome can be expressed in strategical terms, ideally. So you have an RPA program that connects the CEO agenda.
And then again, it's governance. A COE is the model that's most commonly used. If you're good at COEs in your organization, do a COE. If you're not, do what works, right? But what you hear most frequently when we talk about management and governance, it is a COE. The important thing is that you've created a structure and you've created some processes by which you manage and control the implementation of your technology.
So I have a question. One of the reasons that we're preferring to use people against RPA is for flexibility and adaptability against external changes.
Yeah.
So with today's systems and infrastructure, how adaptable are those new technologies, which will take us to understand how much maintenance we need to put into our RPA services?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, it always apply the Pareto principle. No? What your people do 80% of their time, they are doing 20% of the casuistics. No? That's where we start. But typically we never get rid of the people if the process is not super stable. No? It's people combined with robots. And then it starts the continuous improvement processes, saying that now I have this process stable, I'll give it to the robot. And the next one, and the next one, and the next one. But you really need the pool of experts to deal with exceptions. No? That's it. And the second, this is a very important question, very good question. The robot technology is very visual. When you see a process, you can read through the process. We have top managers seeing the robotized process design, and they understand that. And I have stories of even a top manager in a banking industry saying, now I understand what's happening. And it's not difficult to change. They even say, now I know what is happening in my company. By the way, can we change this? It's very visual. It's like you have a worker and you can read it's mine. And the continuous improvement, it's very visual, very easy, because it's in business terms. That reinforces the idea that A.J. was saying before, that RPA implementation must start from the business. And then moving to IT, the IT part is not difficult. It's not difficult. That's another change in the paradigm.
Jaime, I have a quick question for you. So you're based in Mexico City, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So is there anything unique about RPA implementations based on geography, culturally, or any unique factors?
It's client by client. It's client by client rather than country by country. But I would say in Mexico, we are better at artisan work and self-crafting things, and it's much more important to understand what is happening. That's a key differentiation. So once you understand, things that seem very complex, they are really simple, and then RPA, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of implementation, you are done. But I would say that in those countries that they used to solve problems with just throwing people, the key differentiator is, or the key success to succeed with RPA is, let's start by understanding what's happening in your company. No? I have an example. The first robot we made, it was automating the SWIFT transactions. I don't know if you know, it's big cash transactions. And they were using a system from the 80s, no? And 20 people doing that. And the key lever for the success of this implementation was understanding what those people were doing. Because the people said, yes, this one is an SPAY, this is an Ostro double, this is, but why? And in this case, I would do that, and in this case, I would do, but why? What's ruling what you are doing? So that was a 6 weeks implementation, and 4 and 5 weeks was sitting with those people, trying to understand during the last, I think was 35 years, how you have been managing these cash transactions. Why? With what rules? And I think that's very specific of, at least in my experience, but it changes client by client in Mexico. The important thing is to understand what is happening today. No?
Got another? Yes, go ahead. Sorry, sorry, Anurag, this guy's got the mic.
Well, I have a question. Would you recommend RPA solutions to young or maybe starting companies, or is it better for companies that are in a more mature stage in their processes?
So I think what we have seen is, so the GBS and shared service industries have taken to this pretty quickly, partly because work's been centralized, work's been standardized, it's all done fairly consistently. So GBS and shared service, I come out of the shared service industry, that's where I started my program. But we certainly, we have huge clients, legacy clients like Lloyd's Bank, Santander, organizations that have been around a lot of time. And I think one of the things that distinguishes a lot of our clients is they've had a real focus on their process. Doesn't mean that they're always perfect, but they've had a real focus on their process. And I think you have a much easier implementation because it all comes back to process. It's just like, we all remember the pejorative term for outsourcing, right? It's your mess for less, right? And some people see this in a very similar mindset, which we completely advise against. Take the chance, fix the process, then automate it, and you'll get the full benefit of what you're trying to do. So organizations that have made that kind of investment in their processes tend to take to this better. So it can be a continuum, right? It's the strategy. It's okay, what do I know about my business? I know my business. I know we haven't touched our processes in however long, so we need to put a focus there. And then we decide what we need to do with automation.
Shared services is a gold mine for the robots. Repetitive processes, high volume, the robots are very comfortable there. It's a gold mine.
In the beginning, you mentioned about a technology, Blue Prism, I think. What are the main players in this? And second follow-up question is, you talked about banks and shared services and high volume. Are there technologies focused on specific segments of the industry? Or can one set of technologies solve all the RPA problems in the whole world, in every country? I mean, what's your experience been like?
For this, I need time. It's the industry is moving very fast. It's like the soccer World Cup. It's moving very fast. So from week to week, we see new versions of new technologies, and that's why it's so important to have a partner who integrates several of those, so I can come to you agnostically and say, now the state of the art for your specific project, out of the top 5, you need this one. And to your question that, yes, there is kind of, I would need a lot of time for this one, but there is a competitive marketplace. Everybody is developing very well. UiPath is leader today, maybe not tomorrow, I don't know. In one specific area, which is RPA, maybe not that much in RDA. I don't know. This is changing, and the important thing is to find a partner who masters all of them, because this is not a technology-driven market. This is a process market. You show me your needs, and I'll decide the technology for you thereafter, and that's not important. The important thing is to understand to solve your problem. No? But we can talk as much as you want on the competitive market on RPA. Yeah.
Okay, very good. We're going to have to get going, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.